And today's daf is daf nun zayin. And the Gemara answers that Eslo Dorish. We have a gigantic machlokes as to whether or not we darshan es. And in the case of Shor HaNiskal, where the Torah says V'lo yochel es besoro, the question is whether the word es besoro is coming to be marbe tafel besoro, which means the or. The Sanya, Shimon Amsuni v'amri le Nachemia Amsuni hayedoresh kol esed b'Torah kemet shegiel le'es Hashem alkecha tira piresh. What can we be marbe beyond the reverence for the Almighty? And Amru lo Talmid of Rebbe kol esin shedarashta matei alein. You derive so many different things from esin in the Torah as a reboot. Amalehem kshem shekibalti schar al adrisha, kach kibalti al aprisha. I'll be rewarded for being poresh from all those drushes. Ad shebara v'yakiva v'limed. Es Hashem Elokecha Tire, the Rabbos Talmidei Chacham. Some say al pi derech hadrush, it means Rabbi Akiva and his personality was so great that you could be marbe from Es Hashem Elokecha, even a human being, if he's as great as Rabbi Akiva, the Rabbos Talmidei Chacham. In any event, according to Rabbi Akiva, we restore our original premise, and that of Shimon Amsuni, that we can darshan all lesson. But Shimon Amsuni himself dropped the ball and he rejected any drasha of es. And therefore, when it says es besoro, we cannot use, according to Shimon Amsuni, the word es as a ribui for hanas oro. The Mishnah continues, if a man was makadesh and isha bi'egla arufa, the Kiddushin is not valid because the egla is asur b'ana. And the Achronim ask the following kasha. Why did the Mishnah have to tell me that Egla Rufa, the Kiddushin, is invalid because it's Asur Bana? Egla Rufa is Mamanat Tzibur. You don't have any private ownership over an Egla Rufa. And the Oneg Yontif, one of the great Achronim, is famous for saying that the Mishnah is talking about a case where a person designated and an egla for a mitzvah of egla rufa, he hasn't yet given it over to the tzibur, and the tzibur has not yet acquired ownership. And if he's makadesh and isha after designating it as an egla rufa, which is called hazmana, so therefore it's not moment tzibur. The kedusha should be chal, but it's not because it's asur b'ana through that hazmana. Minola, and how do we know that Egla Rufa is also by no Amri to Be'er of Yanei Kaporak Siv Baki Kodshim? We have an equation between Egla Rufa and Kodshim, because in Egla Rufa the Torah says in Dvarim Chafal of Kaper Liamcha Yisrael, and through this Hekesh we're going to derive that just like Kodshim are Sabana, so to an Egla Rufa is also Sabana. The Mishnah then goes on and says that if he's Makadesh with Tzipore Mitzora, the Kiddushin is not valid because there are Asuras Bahana. Minolan, the Tana Devei Rabbi Shmuel, Nemar Machshir. Well, this is a bit complicated. We're talking now about a korban that the Mitzorah brings at the end of his tzaras. That korban is called an Asham Mitzorah. And it's matir the Mitzorah to eat kodshim and to come into the Beis HaMikdash. If he hasn't brought his korban Asham, he cannot eat kodshim. And that's called machshir. Ve'mechaper. All other korbanos are called mechaper. The essence of the korban is the kapara. Now, in both of these cases, the Asham Mitzorah and all other karbonos, the machshir and the mechaper are mibifnim, inside the azar. But we have a machshir and a mechaper that's bachutz. What's that? Nemar machshir, And now we're talking about not the carbon that the mitzora brings the asham, but rather the tziporim that are brought along with the asham. Two tziporim. One will be shechted, and one will be sent out to the sada. And that's called a machshir because those tziporim will allow the mitzora to come back into the machne. Umechaper. Where do we have a mechaper bachutz, like tziporim mitzora, which are machshirim bachutz? That's egla rufa, as the pasuk says, "Kaper li'amcha Yisrael," that we quoted earlier. And they're both mibachutz. So we have a machshir and a mechaper mibifnim. That's asham mitzora and other korbanos. We have a machshir and a mechaper bachutz. That's tziporim mitzora and egla rufa. And now we're going to make a hekesh. Ma machshir mechaper bifnim, just like in the cases of asham mitzora, which is a machshir bifnim, and all other korbanos, which is a mechaper bifnim. Also, bo machshir ki mechaper, the machshir itself has the same din, the same status as the mechaper as all other korbanos. The machshir, meaning the asham mitzora, has the identical din of all korbanos because of the machshir ki mechaper. Af machshir mechaper b'chutz, which again, as we said before, is tziporim mitzora, which are machshir b'chutz, or egla ruf is a mechaper b'chutz. Also, bo machshir ki mechaper. In other words, the dinim of the machshir, we said the machshir was tziporim mitzora, have the same din as the mechaper, which is the egla rufa. So just like egla rufa is asura behana, and we derive that from the equation to kodshim, so too tziporim mitzora are asura behana itma. Tziporim mitzora me emasai machlokas Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish me emasai asurim. At what point in time do the tziporim mitzora become asur behana? Rabbi Yochanan Omer shashchita. It's only later on, when you shecht one of the two birds. And here there's a gigantic machlokes about the mishulachas. Rashi learns the mishulachas, the other tzipors, eina asura klal. And it's only the shchita that generates an isur, according to Rabbi Yochanan, in the shchuta. Reish Lakish Omar mishas lekicha, from the moment that they purchased the tziporim for the purpose of taras hamitzora, in which case, according to Reish Lakish, it's absolutely clear that the tzipora hamishulachas is asura. And Rashi points out here that the matir of the tzipora mishulachas is the shiluach itself. But up until the shiluach from the time of lekicha, it's asur. Rabbi Yochanan, what was the logic of Rabbi Yochanan? Shchita hu di asra. He says logically it's shchita that generates the isur, because the Torah says that the shchuta is asura and the mishuleches is muteres. Again, it could be the mishuleches muteres after shiluach, but whatever it is, Rabbi Yochanan learns that the shchita is the oser. Reish Lakish Amar mishas lekicha. And this is very similar to the discussion we had earlier about egla rufa. We asked the kasha, forget about the fact that egla rufa is also banah. The Kiddushin is invalid because it belongs to the tzibur. But we said no. He designated it, but he didn't yet give it to the tzibur. And that's what the Gemara is going to talk about now, designating ma egla rufa michayim. Once you designate the egla, the calf, as an egla rufa, and it's alive and well, it's already asur banah, as we discussed earlier. And Rabbi Yanai derives this in the din of Isra no begla rufa, that it's like kodshim, and kodshim is asurim mitzad designation, so to the egla rufa is asura mitzad designation. It's af tzipor mitzora, according to Reish Lakish, michayim once you designate the tzipori mitzora for the purpose of taras mitzora, which is at the time of the lekicha, that generates the iser of tzipori mitzora. We don't have to wait till shashchit. The Gemara asks, "V'egla rufa gufa meimasai," and at what point in time does the egla rufa herself become asur ba'nom? Rav Yanai gvul shamati ba v'shachach. I heard it, gvul in the past, but I don't remember. Could be the word gvul here means the zman in which the egla becomes asura. V'nazbin chevraya loma. And the Talmidim use their own logic to answer this question. And they came to the conclusion, sheyiridasa l'nachal eson hi osrosa. That when the ziknei ha'ir bring the egla down to the nachal in order to do the arifas ha'egla, from the moment of Shas Yerida, it's considered Egla Rufa. And if you'll ask me, if the Zman Isa Tzipori Mitzora is derived from Egla Rufa, and therefore it's even Mechayim, is Ma Egla Rufa Mishas Lakicha Lo Mitzora. We're saying now that the Egla Rufa, even though he purchased it until it was Yerida Lenachal, it's not Asura, it's Af Tzipor Mitzora Nami, because Tzipor Mitzora we said were equated by virtue of Heglish with Egla Rufa, is Mishas Lekicha Lo Mitzore. So why did Reish Lakish say that Tzipor Mitzora become Asurim from Shas Lekicha? Lekicha is way before its parallel in Egla Rufa of Yerida Lenachal. And the Gemara answers Hachi Hashta, Hasam, in the case of Egla Rufa, why isn't it necessary Mishas Lekicha? Isle Gvul Achrina. It has another time period, meaning Yerida Lenachal. So it's very logical to postpone the generation of the Isur until the later time period. And we'll always take the Zman Me'uchar Yosef, which is after the Shas Lekicha, at the time of Yerida Lenachal. But Hach, in the case of Tzipora Mitzorah, is like V'ulachrina. There's no later time period. There's only the moment of Lekicha. And that's what generates the Isur, even though it's Michai. So once we derive from Egla Rufa that the Isur is Michayim, Tzipora Mitzorah equated to Egla Rufa is also Michayim, and Al Korchach we have no choice but to pinpoint it as Shas Lekicha. Eisvei Rabbi Yochanan L'Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan is now going to barrage Reish Lakish with three different kashas. Number one, the Torah says in Dvarim Yudali called Sipar Tahora Tochelu, and we darshan from the extra word kol as a ribud l'rabos esam shulachas, that the Sipar that is sent out to the fields is mutar b'achila. And then it says v'zeh asher lo sochlu mehem. And we're going to darshan the word asher l'rabos es hashchuta, that the Torah prohibits the shchuta. It's also b'anov v'isal kedak, according to Reish Lakish, that michayim asura is liachar shchita miboy. Do I need a pasuk to tell me that the shchuta is asur b'achila? You've already established that from the time of Lekicha, when it's still alive before Shechita. So it's pashut that's asur b'ano. If it's asur b'ano michayim, then it's asur b'ano lachar Shechita. Why do I need a ribuy of asher to prove and establish that before the Shechita, it's asura? But if we assume, like Rabbi Yochanan, that before the Shechita it's muteres, if I need a pasuk to tell me that from Shas Shechita becomes asura. But according to Reish Lakish, who says that it was already asura mishas lekicha michayim, why do you need a pasuk to tell me that it's asur b'shas Shechita? And the Gemara answers, Mal de Tema, to Havia Kodshim, to Michayim Asire, that Kodshim is also Michayim, and there's Me'ila, and Tzipori Mitzora have the same din as Kodshim, is Asya Shchitu Machsharola. When we shecht Kodshim Kidin, it becomes mutter to eat the basa. Shchita is matir the hana in the case of Kodshim. And therefore, we could have logically derived the conclusion and argued that so too in Tzipori Mitzora, even though there are suras Michayim, but the Shchita itself is matir b'hana. Kamashma the pasuk says, "V'zeh asher lo tochlu mehem," that the Shchita, the Tzipor Shchuta, is asura b'hana. And even according to the Shita Reish Lakish, that it was Asura Michayim, I still need a ribui of Asher to teach me that's Asura after Shchita, because we might think that just like in Kodshim, Shchita is a Matir, and it removes the Yisra Hana, so to Shchita in Sipar of Mitzora should be Matir, the Yisra Hana. Now we get to the second Kasha of Rabbi Yochanan Esvei, against Rabbi Yochanan, based on a Mishnah in the 14th chapter of Negoim, Shchata. If he shechted that tzipor that was designated for Shchita, the Nitzei Streifen, lo and behold, in the place where the knife went in, there was a nekev in the Veshet, b'makom Shchita, and the tzipor is now psula l'taras hamitzora. So what do? So the Mishnah establishes Yikach Zug Lashnia. Now, the word zug doesn't mean a pair. It means the other half of a pair. And there's one tzipor that's left, and now we need another tzipor to be a shchuta. And we don't have to take two other tziporim. And now, harishonu muteres b'hana, right, the original sipar becomes mutar b'hana, even though that, generally speaking, shchita generates an iser, but here it was a shchita sheina ru'uya, and it doesn't generate an iser, it turns out to be a treifa. So Rabbi Yochanan asked the following kasha, according to you, Reish Lakish, that the sipar shchuta is asura fili michayim, from the time of Lakicha asura, is harishona my muteres b'hana? What is going to be matter the Isra Hana? If you want to say that the Shechita, like Rabbi Yochanan holds, generates the Isra Hana, okay. This Shechita was a Shechita Sheda Ruya because it was Nipsei Treifa. But according to you, Rabbi Reish Lakish, that the Isra is generated by Lakicha, Michayim, then it's already Asr B'hana. And even though now, after Shechita, we find out to be what? To be a Treifa, it doesn't matter. The Shechita is not going to be matter the Yisra Hana. Amalei Reish Lakish answers Rabbi Yochanan. This is the type of treifa that we know is an old treifa, long before. It's not that now the animal swallowed how do you say in English, a boreg, a screw, and it messed up the insides. But no, it's a b'nei me'el. It's a sick animal, and therefore we assume it was sick way back at the time of the Lakicha, and therefore it was never asur b'hana. It was never ru'uya. Third kasha, Rabbi Yochanan. Esvei, Rabbi Yochanan raised the third question from a Mishnah, a Brisa in Masechet Negoim Perek Ches. Shchata yishechted the tzipor that was designated for shchita shalo be'ez of shalo be'etz erez shalo b'shnit holas. The Torah tells us in the Seder Asiyas Tzipor Mitzora in Vayikra Perek Yudal v'tziva koin v'lokach. I'm not going to read through all the psukim. We don't have time for that. But it seems that, at least according to many Rishonim, we need Eitz, Erez, Ezov, Ushni Tolas to be right there in front of the Tzipor B'Shas Shchita. And here it was Shalo B'fnei there was no Ezav, etc., bifana, and he did the shchita. Rabbi Yaakov Omer holva hukta lemitzvasa asura. Since he had designated the tzipor for a mitzvah of Taras HaMitzorah, therefore asura, even though again the shchita wasn't done kihilchasa, kimitzvasa, in the presence of Ezov, Eitz Eretz Shnitolas, Reb Shimon disagrees. Omer hol v'nishchata shalom mitzvasa muteres. But in any event, everybody, all the Tanoim, whether it's Rabbi Akiva and Reb Shimon, agree to one fundamental principle that's universally accepted, and that is that we operate with the principle that the shchita generates the Isur. Ad kan lo pligi ela mar savar koy to Rabbi Yochanan shchita sheder uya shma shchita. Even though the shchita was done on this tzipor shalo b'ezov, etc., and it's psula for taras mitzor, but nevertheless it does have a shem shchita, and therefore generates an Isur hana, and the tzipora is neseres b'shchita zu. Umar, so Rav Shimon says no. Shchita shena ru'uya lo shmei shchita. This is a universal machlokas in many sugis and shas. However, kuli alma bil, everybody universally agrees to the fundamental principle that mechaim lo mitzvah, that what generated the Isur of the shchuta is the shchita. Okay, Rabbi Yaakov holds there's a shchita that generates the Isur. Rabbi Shimon says it's not a shchita ruya, it doesn't generate the Isur. But obviously, everybody agrees against Reish Lakish that it's the shchita that generates the Isur, whereas Reish Lakish was said that it's Nesra Michayim from the time of Lakicha. The Gemara says, Tanoi, you're right. The Machlokas Shem Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish is in fact a Machlokas Tanoi. And Rabbi Yochanan goes according to one Tana, and Reish Lakish going to another Tana. And even though both Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbi Shimon agree that it's the shchita that generates the Isur in the tzipora, like Rabbi Yochanan, nevertheless we have another Tana. The Tana debei Rabbi Shmuel, Nemar Machshir Umechaper. The Osha Mitzorah, as we discussed earlier, is a Machshir. And what does that mean? It's a Machshir. It allows the Mitzorah to eat Kodshim and enter into the Migdash. Umechaper and other Korbanos are Mechaprim. And both of these are Bifnim. V'nemar Machshir Umechaper. Machshir again are the Tzipore Mitzorah, because we're talking about Bachutz. And the Mechaper is the Egla Rufa, which is coming L'Kapara, as it says, Kapar L'Yamcha Yisrael. And it's all Bachutz. Is ma machshir mechaper over bifnim, also bo machshir ki mechaper. Namely, that the din of an asher mitzorah is equal to that of all kodshim, all korbanos, is so to machshir af machshir mechaper also be chutz, namely tzipor mitzorah and egla rufa also bo machshir ki mechaper. The din of the machshir, namely the tzipor mitzorah, is identical to the din of Egla Rufa, which is the Mechaper. And just like in Egla Rufa is Asur Mano Michayim from the time of Yerida L'Nachal Eson, so to Tzipor Mitzorah Asurim Ba'ano Michayim from the time of Lekicha. Let's just take another 2-3 minutes just to finish the Amud. Gufa. The Gemara goes back to the Bryce that we quoted earlier. The Torah says called Tzipor Tahora Tochelu. L'Rabos es hameshulachas. Why does the Torah have the word call? To teach you that even the meshulachas Tochelu is mutabachila. As we said, the shiluach is matir. And the pasuk continues and says, V'zeh asher lo tochlu mehem. And we said the word asher is an extra word for a drush, for a reboot. L'Rabos es ashchuta, to teach me that the shchuta, the tzipor shchuta, is asur bana. Fact the Gemara v'yepachana. Why don't I say the opposite? Switch around the drushos. Let's derive from the pasuk called tzipor tahora tochelu to be marbe the shchuta that it's mutter be'achila. And from the pasuk Zeh shelo tochlu behem, we're going to derive the conclusion that tzipar mishulachas is asura. How did the Brisa know to be matin the mishulachas and to generate an isur on the shchuta? Rabbi Yochanan mishum Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai lo matzinu. Oh, this is going to be a problem. Lo matzinu balechayim shasurim. There's something called an isur olam, and we don't find, says Rabbi Yochanan, that there is such a thing as an Isur Olam Echayim, and therefore it's not mistaber to assume that the Tzipar Mishulachas, which is a Balchayim that's alive and well, should be Asur V'Achila when it's alive. And therefore we're going to interpret the Pasuk Zeh Shelo Tochlu to generate an Isur on the Shchuta. And the Pasuk of Kol Tzipar Tihora Torah Tochelu is coming to be Matir the Mishulachas. Maskif La Rav Shmuel Bar Rabbi Yitzchak V'Lo. And now on Daf Nun Ches, on Daf Nun Zayin Amid Beis, we're going to bring a whole slew of cases where the Torah generates an Isur on a Balchai that's still alive. For example, on Daf Nun Zayin Amid Beis, Vari Muktzah V'Nevad De Balichayim Ninu Vasiri. So we'll stop here for today. And tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem, we're going to try to disprove what Rabbi Yochanan seems to be saying in the name of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, that there's no Isur Olam Mechayim in an animal that's alive. And we're going to give case after case after case of an animal that's alive, like Muktzah, which was designated for Avodah Zarah, Nevad, that the animal was worshipped, like the cow in India, or Balichayim. They're all alive, and yet Asire Isur Olam, even though they're still alive. And that's going to be a kasha on Rabbi Yochanan, but we'll give a number of examples. Okay, then? So we're slowly but surely catching up. Not there yet, but we're getting there, Mitzvah Shem.